All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now the meetings are over. I want you to know the $10 you paid just to get you in, you're really going to pay the price from now on. This next hour or so, and you got to listen to everybody. That's the price you're paying. And I want to remind the ones who are getting up here that you really have to eat this mic. There's no separation here. No divorce between you and the mic here. Really appreciate everybody coming. Great turnout. And this, of course, you all know, the third month of the series. And from my perspective, the big deal is that so many people, so enthusiastic about looking forward for our region of ways of making this more successful. That's really the big ticket item. The washrooms, I think you probably all know, but they're through that little doors down to the right. It's also the exit signs in case there's some other kind of emergency. And I think that's about it. Other than Ron, can you hear me? Yes, you can. Okay. We're going to have you first, Grand Chief Ayasik. Did I get that right?
Right.
You know, thank your wife there, supported you all these years. Keeps me directed straight too. Anyway, Ron, you want to come up? And we're going to ask you to do your part in welcoming everybody on behalf of your group.
Thank you very much. Surprised you'd asked me to come up here to be the welcoming person, but I will do that. I'd like to welcome everybody to this very important meeting. I think it's always great to see such a crowd of people come and look at the best information that we need to get to keep our town and our families happy. I'm always proud to be a member of HOPE. Been involved with the city people for as many as 40-some years. Since I moved home from the States, I worked down the States for several years. I was very, very happy to come home because the town of Hope has been one of the most open cities in the Fraser Valley to our people and to every other nation that comes into our city. So I appreciate it very much, and I do hope we have a good session today. And my heart, my prayers go out to all the people here. And I thank you all for coming, and I welcome you all again. Welcome to Hope. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that a lot. I remember back in 1977, I think, and I was on the hospital board here with your good wife, so I remember you guys from back in those very early days. Hank, where is Hank? Hank is going to do the national anthem and his invocation.
If you would all stand and join me, please. I need all the help I can get. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our sons command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free, from far and wide, O Canada, we stand. be here today. Please forgive us our frivolity that we have created these money trees. We are not trying to improve on your wonderful creation, but it is sometimes funny to think what life would be like if money would grow on trees. I think Hope would be a very wealthy place and would become an overnight major tourist destination. But we would then not have the challenge and the opportunity to come to these kind of meetings, to put our heads together, because we would have to work. We wouldn't have to work to earn prosperity. And we thank you that we can be here tonight, that we can have our minds nourished by the speakers and our bodies by the food which we receive, blessed in Jesus' name. Amen. Just two little comments. You noticed we had some complaints after the first and the second meeting. I think it was from a Dutch couple that grew up in Scotland. They figured that $10 was far too much. So you all paid $10 and notice we put the change in front of you. And one other thing. The centerpieces that we've had on all three meetings have been very much appreciated and people have taken them home. Now, I think you'll appreciate these are very expensive pieces we got here tonight. So please, we cannot just give them away. At the end of the night, we're going to auction them off table by table, and the proceeds will go to the food bank. Thank you.
Hank always likes to pretend that he's fooling around, but he has a very serious message. Okay, we're going to go to the chamber president. Who the heck's the chamber president? Where's the janitor? Where's the cook? He's gone home. He's exhausted. He worked so hard getting us here. Okay, we're going to go for dinner, and we're going to, like we usually have been doing, these top three tables will go first, and then we'll start applying work this way. Stephen, you coming now or you're coming later? After dinner? Okay, after dinner. It's the politician's worst nightmare. He's going to face a bunch of fed-up taxpayers. And I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm really in trouble. Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Lloyd, and thank you for the opportunity to address you here tonight as we, look at that, and there was light. As we look to the future for Hope, with Great Hope, when my son heard about this speech that I was giving, he said I should call it A New Hope, which perhaps some Star Wars fans or those of you with 11-year-old sons will appreciate. I told him that George Lucas was a real stickler for copyright, so I'm not going to call it that, but I have been watching this series of events closely, and when Millie first approached me with the opportunity to speak, she mentioned that there would be talks on the past, the present, and the future, and that I would be given the opportunity to speak about the future. However, I've noted that every speaker has decided that they are actually going to talk about what the future holds for Hope. So, I think they've touched on much of what will be said. They've left very little untilled ground for those of us tasked with speaking on this segment. So you'll forgive me if some of this sounds familiar, if you've already gone over it. I want to be clear, first of all, that I am a federal politician and a deeply committed federalist at that. I firmly believe that the people in any community are best served when their politicians understand the division of powers set up by our Constitution and respect them. And so while the federal government, the federal level of government, has a significant role to play to ensure that the country and the people and our businesses can all succeed right across the country on a level playing field, I'll speak more about that later. It's really up to the provincial and even more so municipal and local leaders to sell their community and set it up for success. Ralph Klein used to talk about the Alberta advantage. You here have Advantage Hope, and it is the job of the Chamber, Hope's Economic Development Agency, and the Mayor and Council to tilt the field of play to your own advantage, which is what we're really discussing today. So, as I said, I'm just a federal politician offering my perspective as someone who's grown up in this region and been interested in Hope's politics for more than 20 years. And forgive me, Mayor, the Don Williams song comes to mind, and in our house we listen to some of the old country, and he says, I don't want to hear another word, don't need your well thought out advice, though I thank you all for being kind, I can make mistakes myself just fine. So, forgive me if my well thought out advice is something you've already thought of or something that you've already rejected. But when I was taking BCIT business courses, I was taught that in any business venture, whether you're starting out or looking to expand, you need to undertake a dispassionate analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for your business in order to make an informed and wise decision on how to go forward. It was called a SWOT analysis, and I'm sure many of you, as leading business people in this region, are familiar with it. So, I want to provide to you my SWOT analysis of Hope and the economy here, which may provide some food for thought as you consider how to move forward as a community. First, let's talk about Hope's strengths, and there are many. First and foremost, Hope's greatest strength is its people, starting with our local First Nations who have lived here for thousands of years, living off the bounty of the land and our rivers. A strong and proud people, they have much to teach us about the strength of family, maintaining a connection to the land, and caring for our environment for future generations. And if they have been here since time immemorial, shortly after that, the Foremans arrived, and there are many other families like that who have lived here for multiple generations who are responsible for large segments of the population, as Lloyd's hundreds of descendants are, and they love this area, and they continue to make a valuable contribution to our community. Families with deep roots here care deeply about their community. They work here. They volunteer here. They contribute here. And even if they're forced to go elsewhere for a time, their heart is always here. Having a caring and compassionate community will go a long way in building a better community for the future. Another strength that Hope has is its location. You just have to look outside to see that. We have some of the best hunting, fishing, recreational opportunities in the world. We're surrounded by beautiful mountains, valleys, and rivers. We sit at the confluence of 3 major highways as the gateway to the lower mainland. A transcontinental rail network runs through this town. As the old log sign used to say outside, it's a gateway to holiday land. And I can tell you from experience, having been across this country over the last number of years, everyone knows where Hope is, because at one time or another, they've made that road trip through this town. And when they come through, they remember it with great fondness. Hope, as you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know about the advantages of Hope. 2 hours from Vancouver, 2 hours from Kamloops, 3 hours from Seattle. You have access to the 2 biggest markets in the Pacific Northwest of North America, and access to at least 4 international airports within a couple hours drive. And you're still close enough to drive into Vancouver to watch the Canucks with BC Lions, although I don't know why you'd want to do that anymore. Hope's people and its geography provide much strength and should make this an attractive place to do business. The next analysis that must be done is to accurately and honestly evaluate the perceived weaknesses that Hope may have. I don't call them weaknesses, but I'll call them challenges. And quite frankly, that's why I think we're here tonight. If our economy in any town was running on all cylinders, if we had full employment, or every storefront was full, or we were busting at the seams, we likely wouldn't be terribly concerned about hosting consultations on the future of our town, but here we are. When I was a kid, I spent many hours sitting on a stool at the parts counters at Riggers Industrial Sales or Canyon Cable, waiting for my dad to get what he needed from Victor Smith or Ray Zerbini. The family company, Sham Construction, a logging and road building outfit that was started by my grandpa Bill Strahl and carried on by his sons Gary, Stan, and my dad Chuck, provided family supporting jobs to dozens of families in Chilliwack and Hope. And there were dozens and dozens of companies and independent contractors just like theirs that made this town go round. Starting in the early 90s, as you know, logging and natural resource economies in towns like Hope right across the province contracted, and many moved away or went out of business. Well, there is a small group that will continue to make a living in logging and mining here, but will never again live in those economic glory days. The lack of an anchor industry to replace those natural resource industries and the jobs that went with it is a challenge that Hope has struggled to overcome for nearly 25 years. But where some see challenges, others will see opportunity. I was here in Hope just a few months ago when TELUS announced that they had just completed their fiber optic network upgrades in Hope, bringing unprecedented download speeds to homes and businesses in town. For someone who grew up, from growing up, had 3 channels to choose from on the TV, watched the birth and subsequent death of the fax machine, and got my first email address 20 years ago when I was 18, I understand the speed with which technology changes and opportunities can present themselves in a new digital economy. The marketplace is changing, and with upgraded digital infrastructure, Hope has been presented with a great opportunity. In this new economy, it no longer matters where you get your mail. It matters how quickly you can deliver for your customers, many who are operating exclusively online. What an opportunity for Hope to market itself as the perfect location for internet-based businesses and telecommuters, those who may have to go into the city once or twice a week, but can live anywhere within driving distance to do their job the rest of the time. With an upgraded digital network, you have download speeds and reliability that businesses and consumers in Chilliwack and other areas can only now dream about. As more people move into the digital economy and only go into work a couple of days a week, think of the opportunities for them to live in Hope, surrounded by this beautiful nature, able to afford the home that they've always dreamed of for their families, away from the big city problems that they are tired of worrying about. These people should have your realtors on speed dial. And speaking of real estate, I believe that this is the next great opportunity for Hope, and that it will be here before you know it, if it isn't already. The Chilliwack market has been heating up as people from the Lower Mainland cash in on the lottery ticket known as their family home and head to the Fraser Valley to find an affordable place to live with a yard for their kids and the family dog. Many young families can't even get a foot in the door in the overheated Vancouver market, but they can get a nice townhome in Chilliwack for a reasonable price. But as more people move east seeking those prices in Chilliwack, the prices go up and up and up. And the people who want to live in this region but can no longer get the house they want in Chilliwack will start looking elsewhere. What better place than Hope? With its beautiful new subdivisions, character neighborhoods, a hospital that can cater to young families and seniors, and this very recreation center that we're holding this event in today. It's a great place for families to live and work in. What an opportunity to attract more people to Hope, as opposed to losing people to communities for the West for a change. I swear to you, I didn't know he was going to be here, but I'm reminded of my friend Ben, who moved here with his young family within the last year. He works a blue-collar job in Chilliwack, but was able to get into a brand new home near Cockwell Lake. He drives the 35 minutes to Chilliwack every workday. which is about the same time it takes some of us to get across town in rush hour. I know it will take some work to convince people that Hope is not on the other side of the province. I dealt with this with my friends from Abbotsford when I was a teenager. They never wanted to come all the way to Chilliwack, but seemed to think it was nothing for me to get to Abbotsford. Anyways, this will require a savvy marketing effort for people in Chilliwack and points beyond, but once you get that foothold, hopefully word of mouth will encourage others like Ben to make this their new home. Tourism is also seen by many as an opportunity, and while I won't get too far into that topic, I will say that in the previous Parliament I represented the riding called Chilliwack-Fraser Canyon. It was 30,000 square kilometers and included communities as diverse as Hope, Kent, Harrison Hot Springs, Lillooet, Cache Creek, and Ashcroft, and all points in between. Every single one of those communities listed tourism as one of their top economic development priorities. Each community had unique assets that provided compelling reasons to visit. Each had created unique slogans designed to attract visitors. Each had plans to stretch day trips into overnight trips to the benefit of their motels, restaurants, and local vendors. Each wanted to make tourism their advantage. Tourism will always play a role in Hope's economy, and a vital one at that. My point here is that Hope is a fantastic place to visit, and we should do everything we can to promote it to tourists throughout BC, Washington State, and points beyond. But we should be careful in assuming that increased tourism can be a panacea to our economic problems when there are so many other communities vying for the same customers. We need to continue to fight for our piece of the pie, but it's a competitive and ruthless fight for every community within 100 miles is in that same fight with us. From my perspective, there are other opportunities for Hope to explore. Can you work with the railway company to find a way to use Hope's unique geography to provide value-added services? Can the work yards be expanded to include greater service and therefore more permanent family-supporting jobs here? Can we learn from Ashcroft, which has embraced the Ashcroft Rail Terminal and has actively supported bringing jobs and industrial activity to their community by working with the railways in their town? Could there be opportunities to provide offloading, intermodal or work yards here, complete with the family-supporting jobs that come with those opportunities? Could Hope be an ideal location for the recycling facilities that we need to keep materials out of our landfills, as has been suggested by some prominent local environmental activists? Good questions. This leads me into the final analysis. What are the threats facing Hope's economic future? One threat that I would argue is taking place right across the country is the all too often automatic knee-jerk reaction of not here whenever industrial development is proposed. We don't have to look any further than the Nestle water plant right here in Hope, which is currently one of the biggest private sector employers in town. Even though they provide family-supporting jobs to the community, there are activists who have fought against them and tried to shut them down because they believe they don't pay enough for the water, or we shouldn't drink bottled water because of the plastic used, or it isn't the right fit for Hope. Are there other industries that would like to set up shop in Hope who've been scared away because of fear of the unknown, or because minds have been made up before they are even able to discuss their proposals? Not every project is right for every location, but I believe that fulsome, open, and honest discussions on the pros and cons of any economic opportunity should be fully considered before they are accepted or rejected. Imagine if our forefathers in the logging and mining industries have been told, "Not in our town," by the people of Hope. Another way to put this is that we cannot let the perfect become the enemy of the good when it comes to economic opportunity and development. So how does a town like Hope, or a province like BC, or a country like Canada set itself up for economic development and expansion? A couple of years ago, Forbes magazine declared Canada to be the best place in the world in which to do business. Why? Because our fiscal house was in order, with a balanced budget, low taxes, and a predictable regulatory regime. In other words, investors knew that when they invested in Canada, there would be no surprises and there was value for money. It was very low risk to invest in Canada. Now, I know that the Chamber is a non-partisan group, so I will not dwell on this, but I think we are headed down a dangerous economic road when we give up our competitive advantages, when we lose, when we change the rules in the middle of the game, as the current federal government has done on resource development projects across the country. We head in the wrong direction when the federal government doesn't follow through on their promises and instead raises taxes on small business. And we head in the wrong direction when we borrow billions of dollars we don't have and go into massive deficits at a time when the economy is not in recession. We know that that money will have to be paid back, and it will be our children and grandchildren who will get the bill. If Canada is to continue to be the best place in the world in which to do business, we need to protect the economic fundamentals that have made us so strong. And to position itself well for economic growth, Hope must ensure that they too have good economic fundamentals with competitive industrial and residential tax rates. In order to benefit from federal and provincial infrastructure, they must set aside money for capital projects and make them shovel-ready with haste. They must invest in good grant writers. As I can tell you, there are some communities that are constantly shortchanged because they cannot communicate effectively with the senior levels of government who have set aside billions of dollars for community infrastructure. And I spoke with the mayor and council staff today, and I can tell you I'm very encouraged that they are on board with these infrastructure projects and have their ducks in a row there. And Hope must continue to send the signal that it is open for business and that you want to work with companies large and small so that they will invest here, hire more employees here, and make the future truly bright for this community. To do this, you will need to develop cutting-edge marketing capabilities, both in traditional media and increasingly in digital and social media to make this happen. This is something that all politicians are learning. The traditional media is not enough anymore. You need to be in that digital marketplace as well. There's great opportunity and hope for new residential, commercial, and industrial growth, but it's imperative that those opportunities are communicated to the right audiences at the right time using the right methods. I commit to you today that I will do my part to advance the interests of Hope in Ottawa and anytime and anywhere I have the opportunity to do so. Hope is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you to everyone here who's working so hard to make sure that Hope's future is even better than our past and our present. I truly believe that with hard work and determination for Hope, the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Mark is prepared for any questions you may have. I would like to say, for an old guy who's lived a long time and heard a lot of people speaking, for a young fella, no, that was an excellent job. Really appreciate the talk. I thought it was well to the point of what we're doing. Great. Any questions? The easy one, that's great. Just vote for him, you'll be happy. I think what you're doing, I think Mark skillfully orchestrated this one. You notice how he started out? It's the feds are sort of in the background. It's the local guy, and it's the province, and he's saying get those tough questions for his next speaker, because Laurie needs no introduction to any of you, but our MLA, Laurie Throness.
Okay, well, I'm going to hold the mic in my hand, and I promise not to sing. And I need to move out of the way of the screen because Mark is so interesting that I need pictures to keep you all occupied. So I brought some pictures with me because I want to talk about Hope's future in the context of its present economic situation. Because the economic situation of today has an impact on the future. So I'm going to talk about the budget. If Ken can get that working. I'm going to talk about the budget, and I'm going to talk about the future in the context of today's budget. So we're almost up there, and so what I want to say first of all is thank you for an excellent meal. Stephen Young should really switch some of the items on his McDonald's menu for what we had here tonight. He'd make $1 million. Or maybe he's already making $1 million. If you're McDonald's, doesn't everybody make $1 million at McDonald's? And then the second thing is that with the money tree in the middle of your table, I'm quite used to that because everybody who comes to see me thinks that money grows on trees. So I'm used to that. And you know, almost maybe it does because we have a $47.5 billion budget that I want to talk about today. So there are opportunities here that you might see for yourself as I go through this. I'm going to throw as few numbers at you as possible. But we start with a story. And the story is a happy one. The story is that in BC, we're leading the country in the economy. We created 50,000 jobs last year. Since 2011, our economy has grown by 8%. It's a very good story. And that leads us to our discipline, leads us to AAA credit rating, which is the best credit rating you can get. All the credit rating agencies have lauded our discipline. We've had 4 balanced budgets in a row. We're heading for our 5th next February, and our 6th, and our 7th, and our 8th. We're going to keep on doing that. And that means, and one of the reasons why, is because we have, previous slide, a debt to GDP ratio that's very low. If you were making $100,000 and had a debt of $17,000, would that be a problem? No, it would not. But that is our debt to GDP ratio. It's 17.4%. If you look at the States, it's 108%. If you look at Japan, it's 229%. Our debt in BC is extremely low, and that's why we have a AAA credit rating. And that means that our borrowing costs are much less. In Ontario, if we had the same credit rating as Ontario, which is a disaster, we would be paying $2.4 billion more per year just in interest. So we're paying 1.6 now, we would be paying $4.0 billion a year in interest, but we're not because we have a balanced budget. So, next slide. We are paying off our operating debt. Operating debt is what you use if you took a credit card and bought your groceries with that. That's just sustaining the regular operations of government. We had a debt in doing that. We want to pay that off first before our capital debts, which you consider like a mortgage in your house is good debt. This is bad debt, and we're paying that off first. By 2020, it will all be gone. And that means, next slide, that we only need to borrow to build. And so we're building. We're borrowing $20 billion, 12 of it to spend on hospitals and schools and roads and supported housing and all kinds of other stuff like that. BC Hydro is borrowing $8 billion to do upgrades on its dams all over BC and to build the Site C Dam. And all of that, next slide, is going to create 71,000 jobs in 3 years. And that's an amazing number of jobs. But that's only part of the story, because we are aging as a society. And by 2022, 700,000 British Columbians are going to retire. That means that all of those jobs will need to be filled. We are looking at a huge number of jobs that will be available for young people. So there will be great opportunity. I helped to open the Hope Secondary School welding program late last year. And it's a tremendous opportunity. We are training more and more young people to get into the trades and into the kind of jobs that will give them good livings. And high school is just one of those things. Another aspect of our economy is low taxes. We have the lowest taxes in Canada for an individual making up to $122,000 a year. And that's a cumulative tax burden, including MSP, sales taxes, fuel taxes, carbon taxes. And there are some handouts that my assistant has, and I'll introduce her in a minute, that you can look at afterward that will give you some different configurations of family configuration to know how you shape up looking at the rest of the country. So, what really matters? What really matters is not just the economy, but social spending as well. What have we done on the social side? Next slide. This is something that people don't like. MSP premiums. I hear a lot of complaints about MSP premiums. MSP premiums raise $2.5 billion every year. If we did not raise them that way, we would have to hike income taxes by $2.5 billion. That's a difficult proposition. Health is incredibly expensive. It's a $19 billion program. Fraser Health Authority alone has 27,000 employees. Can you imagine that? The Federal Department of Agriculture in Ottawa only has 14,000 employees. It's twice as big as that. It's a huge, huge program. And the fact that our society is aging means that more and more people will need health care in the future. So we have changed in this budget some things for MSP premiums. So 335,000 people are going to pay a reduced premium because of our budget. We're enhancing premium assistance, and we're taking children off the rolls altogether. What are some consequences of this, of our MSP premiums? Well, some examples are, a single parent with 2 kids could save $1,300 a year. A single senior who makes a low income could save $360 per year. So a senior couple now starts getting subsidized when their combined income is at $51,000 or less, and that's much better than the way it was before the budget. So we're really working hard to reduce the impact of MSP premiums on you. Next slide. We have something for you, a training and education savings grant. $1,200 for every child born after 2007. With this budget, we added $39 million to make it from 2006 on. So if you have a child that was born in 2006 or later, you can get $1,200 and we'll put it in the bank for their future education. And if you add to that, you can easily, by the time they're 18, pay their tuition. We've done some things on the housing affordability issue. So we're building 2,000 new affordable housing units. That's in addition to the 25,000 we've built since 2001. We're putting $355 million toward it. That's a lot of money. We changed the property transfer tax. So anything up to $750,000 for a house, a new house, will no longer pay property transfer tax. That means a family could save up to $13,000, and that might mean that more people will buy a house right here in Hope, and we hope that's true. We've done a few things on housing affordability as well. We've expanded the seniors' home renovation tax credit so that people on disability can get it as well. We've increased the homeowner grant threshold from $1.1 million to $1.2 million. We're trying to reduce hidden costs, fees and penalties and things like that that the municipality might put on. We know that doesn't happen in Hope, but in other municipalities it might. And we're collecting data, citizenship. On children and family development, we're adding $217 million so that children in care will get more, so that youth with special needs will get more. We're facilitating adoption of kids in care, and that's a big bill. We're paying it because it's important. For social development and social innovation, $250 million increase for caseloads of welfare. $36 million more for CLBC. That's about 15,000 people are helped who have developmental disabilities. And we're spending $170 million for people with who get persons with disabilities who get disability pension. And this has been mischaracterized. Hope was treated unfairly here because people in Vancouver got a free bus pass, and Hope residents who are on disability got nothing. We've changed that so that everybody now gets $77 more starting September 1, and you can buy your own bus pass. So people in Hope, where there are no buses, will now just get $77 more a month. And that's important because there are 375 people in Hope on disability, and that means that $350,000 more per year will be put into the local economy just through this measure alone. Now, we've created a prosperity fund, and this has to do with LNG. It's $100 million because we think it's important to start saving, and so we're going to start saving now. 50% of that is going to go to our debt, 25% for far into the future, and 25% toward priority investments. We've diversified our markets, so that BC is only half dependent on the states. Alberta, you can't see it probably from your distance, but Alberta is 87% dependent on the American market. Ontario is 80% dependent on the Americans. We are only half dependent. 36% of our exports go to Asia, and about 12% to other countries. And so we are trying to insulate ourselves from shocks, and that will help Hope as well. This results in people coming here to BC. So last year, 37,000 immigrants came here, and 13,000 came from the rest of Canada. 50,000 new residents came to BC, and a lot of them settled in the Lower Mainland. People are voting with their feet. They see that there's prosperity, there's opportunity here, and they're coming here, and some of those people will come to Hope. we are in a unique situation with regard to deficit. So we and Quebec are the only two jurisdictions in Canada that have balanced our budget. And that is, I think, a tremendous achievement. And 4 times in a row is even better. We're going to continue to do that and insulate ourselves from things like the oil price shock. About 75% of government spending is on wages. And so we're making sure that we have deals to ensure labor peace with our unionized workers. And about 80% of them are now under contract, and we only have the nurses to go and a few others. So we're making sure to insulate ourselves from that kind of a shock as well. So we just have a great story to tell. And I want to mention a few things. That's the last slide, basically. I want to mention a few things that I pulled out of the budget that could help Hope specifically. The first one was that they were going to close our drop-in center here. And I got a bit emotional about that. And I said, about 1/3 of my business comes from Hope. Hope has some needy people in it. And so we need to help those people. And so Fraser Health Authority has come out and promised $500,000 per year more for healthcare in Hope on a continuing basis. And that's going to help Hope to meet the needs in this community. Today, there was an announcement about zebra mussels. We're going to try and stop zebra mussels from coming to Coquille Lake and other lakes in BC. There's going to be a permanent station man, probably at the Hope's weigh scales, where all the boats who go through have to be viewed by an officer. There's going to be 32 auxiliary conservation officers hired to man these 8 stations all over BC, and so that's going to help Hope. Number 3, there's a rural dividend fund. It's $25 million a year for smaller communities. That's going to be announced tomorrow. So our mayor has to be watching for that, because we want to try and cop some money from that $25 million fund. Number 4, infrastructure. The infrastructure program is still ongoing. We want Hope to apply for infrastructure. The deadline is April 28th, but there's an application in the works. So we're driving hard for money for Hope. Number 4 is on the move. We have an on-the-move transportation program over 10 years. And we're putting $2.5 billion into that, and that helps airports, it helps roads, it helps side roads, and we're going to try and get some money for Hope for that as well. So just one last little story. Last year I went up to Kitimat, and I drove with some other MLAs by Inco, and Inco is a big aluminum smelter there. The largest private sector investment in BC's history to date was there at the Inco smelter. It was $4 billion. The one LNG project, the Petronas project, is $36 billion, 9 times bigger than the biggest private sector investment ever in BC's history. That's why we're working so hard to get LNG in BC. There are 20 LNG projects in the works. 20. The dividends to Hope indirectly could be enormous, and also to the rest of BC. So we see the big picture for Hope is in the Lower Mainland. We see an increasing population. We see increasing economic activity. We see increasing house prices in Vancouver. All of these factors are driving everything this way. Growth in Hope is inevitable, and the future for Hope is bright. But we need a council, and we have a council that's development-oriented, that's looking forward and looking outward to new businesses, not looking inward and downward. And there are new businesses that have moved into Hope just in the last few months. And that means good things for Hope are in the future. Unfortunately, I will not be your MLA in a year. My riding boundaries are changing, and so a lady named Jackie Taggart, who's now the member for Fraser Nicola, will be running in this riding, and I sure hope that you'll support her, of course. But I really feel sad that I won't be able to serve you in a year, but it has been a pleasure to serve you, and I will be looking forward to working hard for you for another year to help make Hope a brighter and a better place. So thanks so much for having me tonight, and I'll be glad to take any questions you have. One thing before I forget, I want to introduce my assistant, Dagmar Lusak. Dagmar, can you stand? Dagmar is better known than I am.
Yay, Dagmar!
Dagmar does a fantastic job. She goes to the wall for constituents in Hope and elsewhere in my riding. And she brought with her some information. If you have a question about MSP premiums in particular, as to whether you qualify under the new rules, please see Dagmar after. She will give you some handouts that will tell you whether you qualify for MSP premium assistance. Questions? You all want to go home.
Well, I think this government is kicking a dead horse and they keep talking about these LNG projects, because the LNG market right now in the world is all coming out of Russia and Australia, because there's a glut in the market. And even though, like they said, Forest started to build a new plant on Tilbury Island, they were going to expand. They had another expansion plans in the works. They shut down and left it because they can buy it on the open market, sell it to their customers now, and still make money. So I think we're kicking a dead horse. I'm one of the people that do the work on these LNG plants stuff. I'm plumber by trade, so I know all about it.
Well, the two things there. We have not risked anything on LNG. It's not cost us really a penny. We're going after that industry. We can only benefit from it. But LNG plants, when they look at production here, they look at in a 40-year time horizon. So right now there's a glut, but Petronas has already announced that it will go ahead if they will get if it can get approval. We came to an agreement with the Lax Kalama First Nation up there that was opposing the project about 2 weeks ago. We're only waiting now for the federal cabinet, and Petronas will go ahead. So we do believe that we will have an LNG industry. We're not going to be deterred from fighting hard for that LNG industry so that all of us can prosper. Thank you.
What's the time horizon with plans for upgrading Highway 1 from Langley to Old
From well,
like what?
yeah, there is no timeline from Chilliwack, from Abbotsford out. There is a timeline for Langley to Abbotsford, and that is about 2022. But there is no timeline after that. It depends on growth, right? Population growth, demand, and it depends on how much money the government has. So, you know, we're committed to upgrading, but we have not put a timeline on that yet. Thank you very much.
Just a bit of a reminder, we're going to take a coffee dessert break.
Can hear you.
Can you hear me now? No. What did you do to this mic? It's not working. It's not working. Here's your taxpayer dollars at work. There now? Okay, the little plates in front of you are to be taken back for dessert and coffee. We're going to take a little break for that. I want you to know that. I would just like a very short editorial. Really appreciate the two guys have brought us home. That's nice to both of you guys. But, you know, if the bureaucracy can screw anything up, they'll start with bringing us an MLA from Merritt. We've got Fraser Health, we've got School District 70, and it boggles my mind how that would ever happen, that we're going to be intertwined with an MLA that doesn't understand our health system, doesn't understand our educational system, but somehow it happens. And there's one other point, I forgot what it is, so it don't matter. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with our third and final speaker.
Don't make me pull up.
Mike with no hook on it. Okay, we're got a couple of housekeeping items first, and Donald, you're second. Stephen, you're running away. Stephen's got a couple of things to say, and I said as well.
You speak too loud.
Yeah, got to speak loud and carry a small stick. Anyway, Donald, after Stephen, then you come up.
Hi everyone. So it seems if anyone don't know who I am, I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce. And the reason why I just want to speak a little bit is I just want to thank everyone for coming in today. And especially we have our MP Strahl here and MLA Laurie Throness. And also we have our Area A directors, Terry Raymond, Area B Director Dennis Anderson, and our Mayor of Hope, Wilbur Victor, is all here tonight. So just want to thanks for their coming in, and just a couple of things I want to talk about the chamber, because it seems everyone knows this meeting is hosted by the chamber, but not too many people might understand what is the mandate of the chamber. So I just want to take this opportunity to explain what the chamber is doing. So in our mandate, the Hope and District Chamber of Commerce is a volunteer organization of business professional men and women and community individuals who have joined together for the purpose of promoting the civil, commercial, and industrial progress of their community. So in the other word, the chamber is 100% self-sustaining, and our funding coming from our memberships and the service that we're providing. And we have no funding or any other help from the local government and all that. And the benefit is it keeps us very unique as organizations, but the downside is we're very poor. So anyway, it's my pleasure to have all of you here. So the chamber has done quite a bit of events in the past 18 months. We've done different things. We have, for example, we have business promotions happening in some of our meetings. We have talents coming in. We have British Columbia Protection Services coming in, or we have different community groups such as the crime preventions, Crime Stoppers. We have different community groups join our meetings too, and we also have we also hold all candidate meetings for the federal and the municipality elections, but nothing compared to this event we just put up in the last 3 months. I mean, these 3 dinners, it is a very challenging event for us to do it, because we have 10 board of directors with probably close to 80 to 90 memberships. But to put up an event like this, we're more than the first time we have 120, second time 150, this time we have 160 tickets are being sold. And it is I have to say it is a lot of work. So I want to thank my directors for helping, and all the volunteers that put in the time to help and make these events happen. Back in last year in January, I mean not last year, this year January, I think first week after the new year is the final, in one of our chamber meetings, we have to make a final decisions of should we have this meeting happens, or should we basically think it's too much of work, we cannot conquer the workload, and we are close to the point that might as well just don't do it. And then we come out and we decided we want to do it. And it turns out with the community support, and let's put it that way, without the support of the community, we won't have the passion and the energy and the drive to make these 3 meetings happen. So once again, I mean, thank to you guys, probably not me, so give yourself a big round of applause. One other thing I want to highlight in this 3 speaker series. And one of the reasons why we want to put these meetings together is we want to reignite that fire and that passions in our community. Since we have lost that platform at times that people can sit in a room, have dinner together, and seeing friends. I see so many amazing things happen in this room. Many friendly dialogue, many open-minded comments and opinions exchange, and also the most amazing thing is many handshakes and many hugs. I mean, that's something that I feel. This is in nowadays when we all sit in front of a computer, we all just using our social media, email as our main source of communications, and be able to have 150 people sit in one room and talking to each other, celebrating what the community has done together, and be able to at least say hi to each other and we connect. I think that's a very important thing and something that we kind of miss out in the community. So, so that's all I have for everyone. So hopefully everyone enjoy the dinner. And next one is Donald, right? Donald, you have some promotions about the salmon barbecue.
Yes, I do. Can everyone hear me okay? Yep. I seem to do okay without a mic, I guess. Last year, we're quite excited, or I was quite excited, had this little bit of an idea that a place like Hope, a place like the Fraser River, which is very famous for, for its salmon, the longest, I believe they say it's the longest undammed river in the world, that holds salmon. And we introduced this notion that, in conjunction with the Hope Chamber of Commerce and with the Hope Lions Club, of this salmon barbecue. The salmon barbecue, the trend of salmon barbecues has been a pretty popular thing, but no one had ever did it in Western Canada. And here in Hope, we did it. And it was the first. The first in Western Canada, the first of its type. It had been as a byproduct for at least one other competition, but this was where it was a dedicated competition. And I'd like to say it was a success. And I'm happy to announce that effective August 20th, we're going to have another one. Sometimes life throws a curveball at a person. And, I certainly have had a few of them thrown at me over the past couple months, and the curve's been hit right back. We're going to be here, and we look forward to inviting you all. Please tell your friends, look us up. It should be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. That's August 20th. Don't forget the date. We're now going into the final quarter, and I don't need to tell you who's coming. You've all got a little run here. Richard Stokes, Vice President of CFIB. Richard Stokes. I'm Stokes. I just gave you a double plug. I thought it was your brother, Richard. Anyway, Richard Truscott. I'm sorry, I'm reading two different lines. I know, but I should have left it the way it was in the first place. You all know you got it in front of you. I should have stopped then. I would have walked in that big hole, but no, I'm not smart enough.
He's stoked.
Pardon?
He's stoked.
Okay, I'll take that. That's a little enough page than I do. All right, Joey, come on up.
Thank you very much. Place with my water. The power control. Technology. Oh, there's something happening there. There's a light. Yeah. I'll tell some jokes up here. Maybe sing a song. Is it going? Yeah. Okay. And is there a clicker of some kind to advance the slides? Oh, it's you. You're going to drive. Okay. All right. So maybe just I'll nod at you or something. Or, I don't know.
I'm working on it.
Okay. So how's everybody doing? Yeah. There you go. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. So first of all, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I've got 280 slides I'd like to get through. No, what, 20 minutes? Is that what we've got? Something like that? Okay. And I'll try to make it very efficient. I do have a lot of information, so one of my big challenges when I speak to a group like this is try to figure out what the issues are and how to present them in a way that really resonates with people. But so I've narrowed it down to about 20 slides or so. So maybe we could just start advancing it. This is just a little joke slide that summarizes how a lot of business owners think about the government, that often they're more the solution of problems than solutions. And that's also a source of frustration for a lot of entrepreneurs. So in my presentation here, I want to talk just quickly about CFIB, just tell you a little bit who we are and what we do. And then I'll dive into some of the issues related to municipal governments. And this is an area of work that we've expanded in the last 10 years. We've done a lot of research, a lot of analysis on municipal governments, and of course we've done the same for other levels of government, but if you want to just start advancing. So just a bit about CFIB and a bit of a commercial on us. We've been around for 45 years. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, basically a political advocacy group for our members who are small business owners and entrepreneurs. We have 190,000 of those members across the country, and essentially these are the business owners that run small independent companies. We have 10,000 members in BC, and I think about 50 in the Hope area and some of the neighboring communities. So we're very much representative of the entire country. We have members in every single sector of the economy you can imagine. Transportation, retail, florist shop, you name it. We've got members that run those kinds of businesses. Our main bread and butter is lobbying federal, provincial, and municipal governments. But one of the things that makes us unique is that we do meet with business owners in person, all of our members, at least once a year. And that means that every week we're meeting with thousands of businesses, and really we feel like that's something that gives us the ability to have our finger on the pulse of what business owners, what entrepreneurs are thinking. And we're very much a research-based organization. It's not what I think about public policy or the issues of the day. It's what our members tell us is important. So we're very much a member-driven organization. We don't get funding from government either. We're maybe not poor, but we're a very efficient organization. It's one member, one vote. So a member who has 10 employees compared to a member who has 50 employees, they have the same voice. They have one vote, and they set the direction in terms of our policy. In addition to the lobbying work, we do have business counselors that can help our members with the day-to-day issues of running a business. Things like figuring out employment rules or WCB, or maybe writing a letter to government. There's a long list of things that we can do on behalf of our members to help them deal with some of the challenges, the ongoing day-to-day challenges of running their business. Just quickly about small business, and a lot of you will know some of these stats, or perhaps have heard some of these things, that the vast majority of businesses are small or medium-sized businesses. So small being 50 employees or less, medium being 50 to 500. And in fact, the average size of our member business is only about 10 to 15 employees. So these are not big businesses by any means. Small and medium-sized businesses represent a huge chunk of the employment. 50% of all Canadians are employed in the small or medium-sized business sector, and that's about half, representing about half of the country's economic output. So a very important backbone of the economy, I like to say, is that small business sector. Just quickly, some stats looking at the last recession in 2008 and 2009. And this is just to show you that public sector employment continued to grow despite the recession. Big businesses laid people off in quite significant numbers, but employment in that small business sector, that 0 to 50 employees, only dropped by about 2 points. So another indication that they are a stabilizing force, a foundation within the economy, which is really important in difficult economic times. Besides being the backbone of the economy, they're also the heart and soul of our communities. There's many entrepreneurs and business owners in this room, I know. This is a photo contest we ran a couple of years ago. This is not stock photography. These are actual members of ours that run all kinds of businesses. So we asked them to send in photos in conjunction with our 40th anniversary to celebrate and talk about some of their stories and some of their challenges. We do a lot of research, and this is a monthly survey that we do of a different subsection of our members every month. Asking them how confident are they about the future of the economy and the performance of their business in the economy. That blue line is British Columbia, the red is Canada, and as you can see, that's the recession down back here, 2008, 2009. Since then, things have been pretty good in the country, although things are starting to soften quite significantly across the country. That Canadian number being at 52, BC at 62. Anything on this scale between 65 and 75 is an area of strong economic outlook. positive outlook on the economy. So we're certainly below that nationally and starting to drift below that provincially. So things are not necessarily moving in a great direction, but still pretty good numbers for BC. Small business priorities. So this is the marching orders that we receive from our members when we meet with them. We ask them, what kinds of issues should we work on? And as you might imagine, taxes, red tape, and it's interesting that cost of local government is not high on the list for British Columbia, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But this just gives you a sense of some of the big buckets, some of the big areas, issue areas that our members ask us to work on. Municipal issues is, as I said off the top, that's an area where we've been doing a lot more research in the last 10 years, and we produce a lot of annual reports right across the country, including here in BC. And this is the concern. If you look at that concern about the cost of local government among our members, among small businesses, among entrepreneurs, British Columbia by far has the highest concern in the country about the cost and accountability of local government. And so that's an interesting piece of context. And if you look at that concern in BC over time, over the last 15 years, it's grown quite significantly. And thankfully, we've seen a little drop in the last few years. Maybe that's associated with the new Auditor General for local government. Maybe municipal governments are stepping up and becoming more accountable, more transparent. There's all kinds of reasons, but overall, if you look at that trend line over the 15 years, concern is up about the cost of local government in British Columbia. So that's something we're sensitive to, and one of the reasons why we're doing so much work in that area. So this really is the challenge for a lot of governments, including municipal governments, and you have a choice as the municipality grows or as the needs grow to raise taxes or cut spending or at least control spending, and we can have a conversation about that. That's really the dilemma for a lot of municipal governments. They need to be able to fund important public services, and how do they do that? A lot of the research that we do suggests that it's really important to focus on controlling the rate of growth. That of course municipal governments they need to grow as the population grows and the needs grow, but it's really important to make sure that that rate of growth is something that's sustainable over time. This is the municipal spending chart for all municipal governments across BC. The red line being population growth, the blue line being operating spending adjusted for inflation, and it also excludes capital spending. And so there is a big gap that's been developing. In fact, municipal governments have been spending about 4 times more than the benchmark of population. And again, that spending is adjusted to inflation. So there's a big gap between what we believe, what our members believe is sustainable over time as the population grows compared to the growth in those operating budgets. That money, of course, has to come from somewhere. If it's not coming from the local tax base, then it needs to come from senior levels of government, or it needs to come from other sources of revenue, but those lines need to at least stay close together over time, or else, those revenue needs go unmet. This is the same graph, but for hope. You can see the population has struggled to grow. This is something I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar with, but that operating spending has really taken off in the last few years. Now, I've already had a conversation with the mayor about some of those things, and there's always, whenever I speak, every municipality I go to, there's always unique local circumstances. There are things that are driving the growth in spending, both on the capital side and on the operating side. And of course, if you're building lots of infrastructure, there's always going to be operating costs associated with that kind of thing for repair and maintenance and upkeep and ongoing operation. So, but that's a pretty astounding differential there between the population growth or lack thereof and the increase in operating spending over the last 10 years. This is sort of a year-by-year breakdown of some of that data for HOPE. And the blue being the population growth or decline, and the red being the increase in the operating spending annually and in real dollars again, so that's adjusted for inflation. So this does show you again that there's a real difference between the tax base and the growth in the tax base or lack thereof, and the increase in those operating budgets on an annual basis. One of the things that's driving the growth in those operating budgets, and perhaps not so much here in the municipality of Hope, but as it seems as municipalities grow and get bigger and as cities grow bigger, that's the real issue, is that it's the public sector compensation that's driving the operating budgets. In most cities, the percentage of the operating budget that goes to salaries and compensation for government workers is usually between 50 and 65%. So unless you can control that line item in the budget, which is the biggest line item in the budget, then it's really hard to control the overall rate of growth in the operating budget. So this just goes to show you the difference between what's being provided in terms of compensation in the public sector versus the private sector. The blue bars are the salaries only, adjusted for occupation and age and so forth. So this is looking at public versus private sector jobs, similar jobs in the public and private sector. And then the red bars is the total compensation. If you include all salary, benefits, everything together, that's the gap between what you make in the public sector versus the private sector. Now, this is for big cities. The research does show that there is a gap for smaller communities as well, but we have not drilled down to say smaller communities like Hope or Langley, or where we've only focused on the larger municipalities. But in BC, this is one of the things we hope to do in the future, is look more closely at individual municipal governments, a longer list here in British Columbia. That if we can do that, that's something we would love to do. I know there's a lot of municipal leaders who say to me, but Richard, there's I understand what you're saying, but there's been a big issue of downloading in the last 10 years. And to that, I say, well, you're right, especially in the years between 2000 and, especially in the 1990s, quite frankly, and into the 2000s up till about 2005. There was a lot of that going on. But at the same time, there's also been, so you can see the breakdown in terms of revenues for governments, that their total revenue has been growing over this period of time, but that the transfers from senior levels of government, yes, there's been downloading on the one side, but on the flip side, the transfers from senior levels of government have gone up 112%. So yes, there's more responsibility, there's more expectation being put on to local government, but they are also being given the resources to pay for those things. The transfers from the federal and provincial governments have increased quite significantly over that period of time. So lastly, I want to talk to you a little bit about the tax gap. And this is the differential between what a resident pays in property tax per $100,000 of property value versus what a business pays. So if you take a property and it's the same value of property, if it was a commercial property, they would be assigned a tax rate. If it's a residential property, they get assigned a different tax rate. So we look at all municipal governments across British Columbia and compare those rates. And the differential is called the tax gap. Now and this is just a cute little cartoon, that's how a lot of members feel when they think about government. They feel a bit like a cash cow. But so a better balance is needed, and we've been addressing this issue for the last 10 years and have started to see some success in bringing down that tax gap. So that 2.93 basically means that a business owner, a commercial property, would pay almost 3 times more than a resident based on the same assessed value of property. So that's the tax gap, the differential. It's now come down for all BC municipalities down to 2.61. So we're starting to see some progress, and hopefully some of that changes due to the lobbying that CFIB has done over the years. If you want to flip to Hope, this is the situation in Hope. So a little bit less than the provincial average, and a small decline in the last couple of years, which is good. In our estimation, you really can't justify a tax gap of anything more than about 2. In fact, maybe even 1.75. Because yes, commercial property owners can write off some of that expense. That only accounts for about 0.5 point. But on the flip side, we looked at some of the research out there that compares the amount of taxes paid versus the services actually received by businesses versus residents. And there isn't a lot of research, but the research that's out there for bigger cities shows that, for instance, there was a study done in the city by the city of Vancouver about 8 years ago that looked at this issue of taxes paid versus services received. And for every dollar that a resident was paying, they were receiving $2.50 in terms of services. The flip was for businesses. They were paying, for every dollar of services they were receiving, residents were only paying 50 cents. For every dollar of services received by businesses, they were paying $2.50. Sorry, I got that a little confused. But so it just goes to show you that there is a bit of a, well, a pretty significant cross-subsidization from commercial for residential. That businesses are not consuming the same level of services, and yet they are paying higher taxes. The classic example, I don't know if it's the situation here in Hope, but the classic example for a lot of municipalities is garbage collection. That commercial property owners, business owners pay for garbage collection through their property taxes. They don't actually receive that service. They have to go out and contract private delivery of that service. So there's those kinds of examples. Again, we want to dig down deeper on this issue. We're trying to figure out ways to do this sort of analysis for other cities beyond Vancouver, beyond Calgary, beyond some of the big cities. But it's reasonable to assume that the same sort of cross-subsidization occurs in smaller communities as well. And finally, this, I think, this is my final slide. Just lastly, I mentioned that that perhaps there has been an influence of the Auditor General for local government. That this is something that we advocated for many years, and about 3 or 4 years ago, the provincial government did establish an office of the Auditor General for local government. Unfortunately, the person they hired was not the right person, and the office sort of stumbled out of the gate. But we believe strongly that the concept is still very sound, that there needs to be some scrutiny of municipal expenditures, especially where there's issues that have come up, but also just a forum by which municipalities can be compared and can learn from each other about best practices when it comes to cost control or delivery of services or whatever it may be, financial reporting. There's those kinds of things that the Auditor General can really help with. The other thing that they can help with and have been helping with is just baseline information about municipal governments so we can compare governments, because too often the way that municipal governments collect and report information is different from municipality A versus municipality B. And so trying to bring some consistency to the way that financial information is being collected and reported, that would be really helpful, certainly to do some cross-municipal analysis. But our members are very much in support of the concept of the Auditor General for local government and believe there should be more scrutiny, more transparency, more accountability on that front. Perhaps that is one of the reasons why the concern about the cost of local government has dipped in the last few years. Here's a long series of recommendations that we provide to the provincial government, just talking about focusing on more data, better data, as I mentioned, sharing best practices with municipal governments on how to reduce red tape and streamline operations, because the province actually is a leader in Canada on that front, on the red tape reduction front. I talked about the tax gaps that also exists in terms of provincial school tax that businesses pay more than residents on that front. The AGLG, working with municipalities to mitigate costs and control public sector compensation. And reinstituting the municipal business vote. I'll just throw that one out there. Maybe we can have a conversation about that. If you're a business owner at municipality A and you live in a different municipality, municipality B, you don't get to vote in the election where your business is located, even though you're paying taxes to the government there. So that's been and there's some history there. There was a business vote in BC many years ago, and that's still on the list of our members' priorities. When we talk to our members, they still bring that up, they still talk about it, they still ask, well, CFIB, when are you going to bring that back? So that's definitely something we have ongoing conversations with the government about, but it may not be exactly at the top of the list right now. And then for municipal governments, we talk to them and have lots of meetings and conversations and provide information about operating spending, as you saw. We encourage them to do formal spending reviews, zero-based budgeting, basically breaking everything down, starting from scratch. If you were to build a municipal government for your community from scratch, how would you do that? What things would you look at trimming? Where would you maybe add more value? Those kinds of things. We also have conversations about sustainable wage policies, because I mentioned how important that is to make sure that overall operating spending is sustainable over time. New service delivery models, and we've got some examples of that we'd like to provide municipal leaders. And finally, just making sure we rebalance the property tax system so it's sensitive to the needs of businesses and business owners, and it's more fair to them. Because right now, I mean, the gap may only be 2.3 in Hope, but there's a lot of cities, a lot of bigger centers where, as that municipality grows, that tax gap has grown. In a place like Vancouver, at one point, it was more than 5. Burnaby was 4. So in other words, a business owner in Vancouver, Burnaby, is paying 4 or 5 times more than a resident in property taxes based on the same assessed value of property. That's clearly not fair. So again, that's a conversation, a recommendation that we have for municipal governments to find ways to shrink that gap. And a lot of it's leadership. A lot of it is simply political leadership and the will to look at the issue and to do something about it. It's not something that can happen over time. It often takes 5 or 10 or 15 years, a long-term plan to shrink that gap to something more reasonable, or to set a target. If it's going to be 2, set that target and move to that target over a series of years. And I think for a lot of business owners, if they know that their municipal government or any government is focused on the needs of small business, of entrepreneurs, and they have a plan to get there, that in a lot of ways that's enough. They want to know that the governments, that public officials are listening, that they understand, and they're trying to do the right thing. So, that is really it. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information, a little bit of research to stimulate some discussion. And I'd be more than happy to stick around and answer questions during the Q&A now or after the official event is over. Or contact me later, email me, follow me on Twitter, whatever you want to do. Always willing to engage in a conversation about policy and about ideas. So, but thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Stephen, thank you. And thanks to all of you, and enjoy the night.
Anybody got any quick questions for the man before he jumps on the airplane and gives away?
Flying along the way.
I'm safe for his sake.
When you make,
What's that?
when you make your comparison of tax comparison of municipal, are you taking into consideration the extra charges to businesses like water, sewer?
No.
Garbage? No.
No, just
So
taxes.
you don't look at that at all?
No, but we can and probably should,
I
because there's
think
a lot of that.
I think that's
Yeah.
a really growing concern in all communities.
Yeah.
These extra charges. So you want to expand your business.
Yeah.
The extra charges for building permits and all the engineering and all this other stuff. Plus water and sewer and garbage is becoming a big thing for businesses.
Yeah.
Where-
Yeah, that's a great
And
point.
I think that's
Yep.
a big point.
Yeah, no, our analysis only looks at the property taxes, but, our research only looks at the property taxes, but you're right, there are lots of extra fees and charges and levies that are either being added on or being expanded by municipal governments. I don't know if that's what's happening here, but that is something that's business owners are facing elsewhere, because municipal governments are so loath to increase taxes because there tends to be more pushback on that front. But if municipal governments can introduce, when they introduce a fee for something or a levy or even increasing fines, like those things, those are all revenue generators for the city and or for the town or wherever it is. So yeah, those things need to be they need to be held to account for those things as well. So our research doesn't look at that, but that is something we're trying to figure out a way to analyze. And of course, there's hundreds of municipal governments, across the province, right? So we want to make sure we can apply the same lens to municipal governments. To be fair, right? To try to compare and look at and analyze municipal governments through the same lens, but at the same time, think about the context. Make sure that we have a conversation underway with local municipal leaders about the context, the local context. What are the things that are challenging? What is happening? Are there big projects? There's all those kinds of things that happen too. But at the end of the day, the government still needs to be paid for, and it needs to be paid for by business owners, of course, but too often our members feel like they're paying too much. They feel like a cash cow, whether it's taxes or fees or levies or whatever it may be.
I bumped the mayor here, the current mayor, the old mayor, so I'm going to have a question here.
Okay, I just have to say I enjoyed meeting Richard and Ted tonight at CFIB. It was an interesting discussion. I think, and Richard, I appreciate your point about context, and I think it's time that when we talk about municipal taxes, we start talking about context. And to that end, I'll re-invite you to our budget meetings. Sure. We'll set up a special meeting. I think when you look at a lot of the expenses over the last 10 years that the district has had to deal with, the It's expenses like the new Cock Lake Bridge, the closure of the landfill, to create a transfer station, infrastructure upgrade. We're going to be faced with a pollution control center that needs refurbishment, and that's over $2 million. So a lot of these expenses are a natural byproduct of a municipality that expanded as a result of amalgamation and has to modernize. This is not a case of mismanagement of council. We've been blessed to have municipal leadership through the ages that I'm proud to be a part of, but obviously I can't take credit for all of that because we have dozens of people who have served as councillors and as mayor in the past. They've all worked very hard to represent our community. And I think when we have a discourse about taxes and when we paint hope in a negative light, I think actually getting the facts would be useful. And talking about the projects which we had to get involved in to keep our community current, to modernize, to respect the agreements we made during amalgamation. This is what we have to talk about. So, and as far as staff salaries, I'm hoping John will plug his ears here, but we're not even on the radar screen as far as staff salaries. We're well below the average. So I hope John didn't hear that because I might hear about that. But just, you know, the invite's there. I'm not trying to be combative, but you know, as they say, you know, if someone starts to invite you, you have to participate. So as far as opening a win-win discourse on both sides, I'm more than happy to do that. We have a great director of finance, a lot of experienced people on the team, and I think if we talk about where all the money's going, we'll be pretty darn satisfied that we're, you know, the District of Hope as a unit has done an exemplary job in managing finances. Thank you.
Well, that's a great thing to say, but I cannot afford the next 10 years my house tax, my taxes on my lots to keep going up and up and up. I'm retired. I have a certain income. How can I afford that? Not working. Who are you asking? Well, I'm asking all these gentlemen, I guess. I mean, they keep promising. They want more money to do these things, but you can just draw so much.
Let me give a little example of what's going on in Terrystown. There's a elected guy there, I'm not saying much, so he's got a little town that I live in, and that little town bought the school from the school board for $1 when the school closed. And that little town started a thrift store where the ladies all volunteer, and it generates enough cash to run the building that now houses a museum, houses a drop-in center for people who cannot afford computers. They come twice a week and read their emails free, and has started 3 small businesses, and those 3 small businesses get free rent for 1 year to make sure they're successful. And after a year, they start paying money. Now, so that's a very small feature in the big pool we're talking about. But you know what? It's the little things that we do that make the big difference. And that's happening up in Terry-Ravenstown. And so there's an elected guy that's probably bragging about that. Oh, I'm bragging about it for him. But you know, it's happening, and it is a big deal. So we need to do what we can do, where we can do. And you know, for Wilford, for heaven's sake, you do what's right in your heart, and you know what's right, you do it. And they can pound sand or kick you out of office. Take the pick, and then we kick you out of office. But I mean, I'm glad he challenged me. Don't like I'm doing, kick me out of office. Because the only democracy there really is small business. Because when I go to Stephen's place and buy a burger, and if I don't like it tomorrow, I won't go back the next day, and nobody will, and he's broke. Everybody else gets elected for 4 years, and you know, then it comes around. Small business, the entrepreneurs, is democracy, it's the best way it is. What was that? About why taxes are going up?
Yeah, but
Expenses are going up?
expenses
Well, I
here.
can't answer it. I'm just
No,
telling
no,
you.
you
I'm
can't.
trying to pay my taxes.
He's got a point.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to want
Who's arguing?
Yeah, there's no easy answers there, obviously, but I think that the facts are we have budget meetings which are open to the public. Anyone is welcome to attend. There's no secret pots of money and there's no secret areas where we spend money. It's all very transparent. Now, we have a very good finance team. We're getting to the tail end of the budget meetings. We could reduce taxes. We could do that. But all that does, that defers infrastructure projects that have to get done. So I'm personally, when I ran for mayor, I was very clear, and it was controversial. I said, I stand for 2% per year for 4 years. If we can operate under that regime, where we can anticipate a small increase, yet move ahead in infrastructure investment, that seemed to be acceptable to the majority of people. I am personally not in favor of a tax decrease, because if we take and this is controversial, obviously, but if we spend the money wisely, we will still not have extra. Because we have the amalgamation, although it was nice to create a sense of community, was fiscally probably the worst thing that could have happened. Because we had outlying areas that had aging infrastructure. So obviously over time, we have to care for the historic downtown and then also respect Cock Lake, Silver Creek, and Lake of the Woods, because we're all one community now. So if we can stick to a 2% increase for the remaining 3 years, I think we're doing really, really well. I think that's best case scenario. So I will not promise a tax decrease because I do not think it's realistic in this economic climate. I'm interested in repaving roads, upgrading infrastructure, dealing with the imperatives like the Pollution Control Center. We're on occasion out of compliance, don't tell anyone. But the reality is, you know, these are things that we have to do. And when we upgrade the Pollution Control Center, I don't think anyone is going to go around and say, wow, that's a pretty darn attractive pollution control center you have here. But the reality is, it's an imperative part about doing business in the community. We have to have a functional, compliant, environmentally friendly pollution control center. There's really no choice. It's not an option. So these are the tough decisions that council has to make. And this being said, we're meeting with Mark and Laurie to help us with grant applications. Wait, nudge, nudge.
So just want to comment about the tax gap, because I like looking at numbers still all the time. That's kind of my full-time job. So about the tax gap, so just in case if the residential tax is already on a high point, so that means it will make the tax gap actually smaller. Because when I actually do my numbers comparison, in all the municipality in the Fraser Valley, Hope has the highest property tax rate for residentials. So when it comes to our business tax rate, is in top of my head is 16 point something %. So it makes our tax gap very small, because one time I think in one of the council meetings, a councillor used the tax gap as a way to protect his message. But if our residential tax is on a high point, then that tax gap actually doesn't show much. Yeah, the 2.31 doesn't convince me to invest here. If I want to invest here, because it's high on both numbers. So just my comment.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And again, we're trying to use the same lens to compare all municipalities and municipal. The situation in different municipalities is different. But it also, sometimes the tax gap can hide other things that are happening, that it may look like the gap is closing, but in fact, the local government is increasing taxes on residents, right? And that's not necessarily something, business owners are also residential property owners often, and so that's not always a good thing either. There are other ways of looking at, like we just focus on the tax gap as being the differential, and that's a sort of a, I guess one way of looking at the fairness issue, but there's other ways of looking at taxes per square foot of leased space. You could look at total government revenues generated from the business side, compare that by population. There's all kinds of ways that you can slice and dice the information. We've just found over the years that the tax gap is a good, simple way to communicate it, but I totally get your point, Stephen. That's a very important caveat on the tax gap here locally, it sounds like.
And I have the voice, so I don't need the mic. So the 77% 10 years increase, is that the operation expenses, or that's including capital expenditure?
That would not include, that would just be operating. Capital.
Can you elaborate a little bit more what is operation expenses versus capital expenses?
Yeah, well, capital would be actually building stuff, like building infrastructure, building new facilities. And as I mentioned before, there are operating expenses that go with that, right? When you build something, you have to maintain it, you have to repair it, you have to operate it. But in our calculations, we exclude those direct capital expenditures and only look at things like salaries, the repair cost, the maintenance, all that stuff, all the ongoing operations. That is what we focus on, not the capital. Because yes, there needs to be capital infrastructure built, and different communities have different needs. But again, the operating side is something that hopefully municipal governments have a little bit more control over and have an ongoing percent they can focus on in terms of increases. Capital will go up and down. Like you'll build a big project, increase your capital budgets over a couple of years, and then they should drop down again, right? So there'll be more variability in that capital budget you would expect over a long haul, and those operating expenses should be more smooth. But we really focus on the rate of increase in that side of the budget as one indication as to whether or not the financial picture of the municipality is sustainable over time. So again, it's just one way of looking at that, but we think it's an important one.
I employ your work. I employ you for what you're doing.
Okay.
And the government should be held accountable. It should have, instead of all this, it's like the oil companies with they're going to increase the cost of fuel at the pump, and so that's just more tax dollars for the government. But even though the barrel is only worth $39, dollars a barrel. So I employ your what you're doing, but the government, if the individual people were crooked, as the government is, we would be in jail.
One of the great antidotes for that is for people to get involved, right? People to care. I mean, the fact that there's this many people out for these 3 events, that's incredible. For a size of this community, that's amazing. I also find that in larger cities, business owners are less likely to put their hand up and go to a council meeting or run for council. One of the big advantages of a smaller community is that entrepreneurs, they know the local elected officials, they know what's going on, they more often put up their hand and offer to run for council. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's also a lot of work being a business owner and finding time to get involved and speak out. When you've got your head down and you're trying to run your business, that's a major challenge too. But I think that's really important. If you want to improve the entrepreneurial culture in a community, it's really important for business owners to get involved. Maybe not if there's not enough time to run to fill a council seat, then go to a meeting and make a presentation and ask questions and raise issues. I mean, that's exactly what people need to be doing. And unfortunately, we see more of that in smaller communities and less of that in bigger cities. And that's sad. I mean, sad on the big city side.
I just have one more comment. I don't agree that we should be raising our taxes to repair our sewer. We should have been over the years. We're charging $500 to everybody for sewer charges. Some of that money should have been put away in a pot, because it is going to wear out someday. You have to do that in a business. In my business, if I don't put something aside in my profits every year, I buy new equipment to do things.
Yeah.
Then someday, 20 years down the road, I got a big bill, now I got to double my prices. So now I'm out of business because nobody's going to deal with me. So you have to do this, you have to. And more important, municipalities should be doing that. For the water, we've been paying for water. So much of that percentage of that every year should be put aside in a pot, so that when we do have to repair the water system 20 years ago, we got the money. We don't need to go up and tax people. We're not doing that.
I don't know, Mr. Chair, you want to comment on that? Is there a capital fund here that
Yeah, we do systematically put aside reserve funds, so that's underway. But there's environmental regulations in many ways have outpaced what was anticipated, And so, I mean, there's certainly a part of the explanation there. I know that every councilman in the past has worked very diligently to plan for the future as well. So it's, that's all I can say to that.
Before you guys go, do not run away until you fill out this paper. Little paper, you've got under your plate. Fill it out, you don't have to sign it, nobody knows who you are, we want some feedback, and that's the whole issue, and that's what I would like to say in regards to the charts you've shown, and the mayor's intensity of feeling guilty, you know. This is a wonderful tool for council, because when they call people together and do their budget deliberation, they can show, this is where we sit, for some reason, we've got to make it work. Well, yeah, no, I mean, it is a tool. It's not too much responsible. They're leading the best you can. Bring all the tools you can get. It's normal. Okay, now we have
Paper's in the box. Paper in the box.
Which one?
Paper in the box.
Oh yeah, well, I'm sorry, I didn't finish the paper. Yes, thanks. Thanks, Mark. You're not even a woman, get you straightened out. These papers are filled out. No, that's in a, if you knew me, that's in a positive. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. I've been 62 years this year, and I think she walks on water, so don't criticize women. Fill this up and put it in the box just outside the door.
And now that the fun part is almost over, while you are filling out your form, I've already canvassed this side of the hall, and the people have been very generous. And now the center and the outer rows, they still have centerpieces on the table, and they are for sale. Now, the question is, did you have a good meal? On the centerpiece, and we put some food on the table for people that are less blessed than you. So I want to remind us, the whole centerpiece is made totally in hope. There is nothing for export, it stays here. Money trees only grow in each country. And they only bloom every 7 years. So you've got them now, get one.
Okay, thank you to the Rotary Club, which I was remiss,